So I'd like to introduce Christopher Hugentobler,
Hi.
Head of Growth at Snapask. So, interesting title, Head of Growth. What do you do there? What does that mean?
Maybe I can.
I mean, are you?
Do I get to talk about my product as well?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, to
So-
me, yeah. Tell us first about Snapask because
Right.
it's kind of an interesting product.
So we do on-demand homework Q&A service for local secondary school students in Hong Kong, Singapore, and Taipei. So right now we have around 50,000 students, and what happens is basically, if they have a test tomorrow, there's a question they don't know how to do, they take a photo, and on average, within 20 seconds, we match them with a tutor. They go in a chat room, and they leave a rating. So the students pay to ask questions. So actually, although my title says one thing, but I mean, in fact, I do many things. Currently, what the company needs is more leadership on the product side, actually. So I've actually been spending more time on doing that. Yeah.
So your company's also interesting not only because of the business that you're in, the business model, but also because it's a hybrid company. It's Taiwan and Hong Kong, right? Mm-hmm. So talk about that. How do you manage these two different areas of the business, and why are you in both Taiwan and Hong Kong?
Right. So I guess, you know, if there was a secret sauce to the kind of traction we have right now, it's because we focused, as I mentioned, only on local secondary school students, and
so local being
high school students who are studying for the local university entrance exam.
Okay.
Right.
In Hong Kong.
In Hong Kong and in Taiwan and in Singapore.
And in Singapore.
Right.
Oh.
And guess where we find the tutors? So we find the tutors from
India?
the same university. No. From the same universities that those students want to get into.
Mm-hmm.
So the students are preparing for an exam, let's say in 2 years, and the tutors they get matched with perhaps just took the same exam, you know, a year or 2 years ago.
Oh.
Right. So that's how we look at where we want to go.
Wow.
In terms of expansion. And Taipei is a great place. I mean, I'm actually based in Hong Kong. I'm going to the airport later, right after, I guess, a round of drinks.
So soon?
But I was just in Taipei working with a team for the past week. Yeah. And the reason is we have 25 people in Hong Kong, but we're basically almost at 25 people now in the Taipei office. Okay. It's growing really quickly, and we have access to a very different type of talent here than we're used to seeing in Hong Kong. So yeah, maybe I'll have to relocate here as well. I mean, at some point in the future.
Oh, really? Okay. So how are the teams different then? What are their different skill sets?
Wow, that's I mean, that's a really complex question. We look at it from the kind of so in terms of skill sets. Taiwan gives us way more flexibility when we're trying to build the engineering team. And in Hong Kong, there's not much of a specific skill set, but we focus on hiring final year college students to come in as interns. We kind of train them up, and you know, some survive kind of our office culture, some don't, but the ones who do usually turn out to be really good full-time hires. So that's kind of how we try to hire. In general, I mean, it's still quite. I mean, I think Sean mentioned this just now. Yeah. It's not a first choice, I think, for students who are graduating out of college to join a startup company. Yet, and a lot of the times, there's a lot of fear surrounding, you know, stability, career prospects, right. Or somehow people think that joining a startup means being your own boss, when in fact there's a lot of, you know, medium-sized startups that are funded who will probably be around in, you know, hopefully 1 to 2 years, right? I mean, so we want to educate, you know, graduates that these are companies that could build their career. Entrepreneurship is a relevant skill set today, even if you want to rejoin a corporate at some point in the future, and that's kind of how we're trying to hire.
So why did you join a startup?
So when I finished college, I started a company. This was in Hong Kong. We took it out to Singapore and Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. But it was not a technology company. And then 1 year in, I resigned. And this company still exists today. It's going to Seoul this year. I resigned because the team fell apart, basically. It was a people issue. And then I spent a few months doing freelance because I have a passion for web programming. It's what I do. And eventually I met the co-founders in Hong Kong. I met Anki here, who runs our Taipei office. And I was intrigued by the prospect of what we're trying to do.
Are some of you connected through Hong Kong University as well?
So one of the co-founders, yes, we both went to the University of Hong Kong. Yes.
Okay. All right. So how do you find the culture different here in Taiwan and Taipei versus what you're used to in Hong Kong? From an entrepreneur's perspective.
Look, I mean, I have friends in Hong Kong who have also started companies, and some of them managed to hire talent right out of Silicon Valley. Like I have a friend, I don't know how he does it, because these guys, they've worked at Google, they worked at Yahoo. They're willing to take a discount on their paycheck and fly all the way out of Hong Kong, join his team, and work like crazy, like really crazy. But I also have friends in Hong Kong who run a startup company, but the pace is much slower. And I guess what I can say is I'm looking to build the culture in the former kind of company where everybody shares that passion for what we're trying to do, and they understand that every single decision they make will affect the outcome of the company. So back to your question, I mean, what's the difference? I guess people in Taiwan aren't worried about land prices and buying apartments as much as young people in Hong Kong
Wire pricing is pretty high here too, though.
Well, I mean, Hong Kong is very
sky high.
Yeah.
Okay. So what persuaded you to join Snapask, and what are you doing in terms of growth? Where are the growth prospects? Is this a company that's going to go global from Taiwan? Because I think that's some of the goals of some of the startups I've been hearing from Taiwan is they want to go global. Is that the case with Snapask? Is this kind of a model that could go global?
Earlier I was listening to York, and on the slide he said that Taiwan is a tiny market. So I was just joking. So what makes, what is Hong Kong then, right? I mean, by default, right? There's no. If you're building, if you're trying to scale a technology company, you're thinking global. But as I mentioned, the way we want to approach expansion is looking for countries where parents allocate a certain amount of their budget to their, sons and daughters' private education. But at the same time, there's a huge focus on an exam-led curriculum, right? So that would really be our priority. So right now, we just closed a Series A, and we're trying to refine our product and keep focusing on these 3 cities. But I think that when we get to the next funding round, we may look at Southeast Asia. We may look at Asian countries like Japan, Korea, maybe China, although we need a lot more gunpowder for that.
Okay.
And we may look at the United States. Sure. The use case potentially would be, SAT prep students wanting to connect with Asians who score the highest in SAT exams, right? So that would be an interesting a way to look at how we would go global.
Sure. So I'm glad you brought up the aspect of the capital raise that you just raised a new round of financing at a pretty high valuation. So how did you tap those investors, and where are they from?
So I'm afraid I can't say.
Well, where are they from?
They're from Hong Kong. They're from Hong Kong. So obviously, Snapask in Taipei wouldn't be possible without Taiwan Startup Stadium. But in terms of raising money, we have relied mainly on the personal connections of our initial angel investors. So the first 1 to 2 guys that really believed in us, and we've really relied on expanding their connections.
Okay. And you still have 1 more spot to fill on the financing round. I heard. So maybe it'll be a Taiwanese VC. Any questions from the audience?
Actually asking the question for the audience, because we happen to know the co-founders very well. They went through a Taiwan Startup Stadium boot camp last year, right before you take off. Can you share with us the average age of your team and the age of your co-founders? If that's not too personal.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we're quite. I mean, Timothy, the founder, has been in education for 6 years, at least. It's a very common thing for entrepreneurial college students to do in Hong Kong because it's just such an easy way to make extra money. So for him, it was really going from first realizing that teaching his own students made less money than organizing other teachers to teach other students. And then opening a physical space to manage those students and teachers, and then finally bring it online. So yeah, I mean, in terms of, I'd say the average age is what, 24?
Yeah, it's really one of the younger groups of startups that was showcased recently in the Forbes Asia issue of superstars, rising stars. So Snapask was one of the companies that was highlighted in that issue. And actually, I helped to get them that nomination and wrote about them for the issue for Forbes Asia. So we have some Taiwanese companies that are in that Forbes Asia issue if you haven't checked that out yet. Okay, I think there was one more question back here. And then we'll move on.
Hi, I'm Sebastian from Fannin. In your speech, I've been very interested by the fact that you said actually that you are very local. You thought very local. Your market is Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Singapore. To catch up the interests of your investor, you insisted on this local aspect, and they were interested, or you gave already the perspective that it was first local, but with global perspective.
I don't think that was a concern initially. I think that the investors were buying into the very clear edtech market in Hong Kong, in Taiwan, and in Singapore, and other similar Asian cities. We were lucky enough to have pretty good traction early, and of course with the help of some accelerators. And a very, very simple product, a very, very simple value proposition, which was, if you're having a test tomorrow, you can find the answer within 20 seconds on this app for a very, very small amount of money. Now, I guess we got lucky in terms of, like I said, the secret sauce, right? We got a bit lucky in terms of figuring out that the psychology of the student is not only to ask questions, not only to get the relevant answer from that tutor, but a lot of the times these students continue the conversation and ask about college life. They ask about girls, food and drink and whatnot. And this was totally unexpected. And it is also part of this exam-led culture where I guess young people in high school look to college as a better tomorrow or something. It's something that they really look forward to. And we were lucky enough to be able to take advantage of that. So now what we need to think about is how can we expand that into more products, more features, etc.
Okay, great. Let's give him a round of applause. Thank you, Christopher. Appreciate it.